against them. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing determination mixed with fear on their F. The USS Defiant sat hidden in the shadow of a dead asteroid, running on minimal power to avoid detection. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the ship's conference room looking at the grim faces of his senior staff. The data they had gathered from the New Geneva system painted a picture of horror that none of them wanted to accept. Dr. Lisa Park stood at the front of the room, displaying her analysis on the main screen. The Devourer fleet will reach Earth in 68 hours at their current speed. Every long-range sensor array in human space has gone silent. We have to assume that all other coalition ships have been destroyed or converted. Maria Santos shook her head in disbelief. How is that possible? The coalition had thousands of ships spread across dozens of systems. Because they adapt, Ryan Blake answered grimly. Every ship they capture makes their fleet stronger. Every weapon they encounter becomes useless against them. They've been doing this for millions of years. Jake studied the tactical displays showing Devourer fleet movements. The enemy was approaching human space from multiple directions simultaneously, cutting off any possibility of escape. In less than 3 days, every human colony would face the same fate as New Geneva. What about our quantum technology? Jake asked. Maria said it disrupted their systems. Maria pulled up her engineering reports. I've been studying the effect our faster-than-light drive had on their biomechanical ships. The quantum fields we generate cause their adaptive systems to malfunction, temporarily, but I don't understand why. Dr. Park had been working on the same problem. I think I know the answer. I've been comparing our quantum manipulation techniques with data from other coalition species. Every other race uses what they call elegant methods that work in harmony with natural space-time structures. And humans? Jake asked. We use brute force. When other species discovered faster-than-light travel, they found ways to slip gently through the fabric of space. Humans decided to tear holes in reality and force our way through. It's crude, inefficient, and creates massive quantum instabilities, Ryan laughed bitterly. Leave it to humans to solve a problem by hitting it with a hammer instead of using finesse. But that's exactly why it works against the Devourers, Dr. Park continued. Their adaptive systems are designed to counter sophisticated technologies. They can't handle something as chaotic and unpredictable as human quantum manipulation. Maria stood up, pacing around the conference table as her mind worked through the possibilities. If we can use our quantum drive to disrupt their systems, maybe we can modify our weapons to do the same thing. Create quantum torpedoes that they can't adapt to. How long would that take? Jake asked. Days, maybe weeks. We don't have that kind of time. Jake stared at the tactical display, watching the red dots that represented Devourer fleets moving toward human space. Every hour that passed brought them closer to the complete destruction of his species. There had to be something they could do with the time they had left. What if we don't try to modify the weapons? He said slowly. What if we use the quantum drive itself as a weapon? The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Maria was the first to speak. Captain, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? The quantum drive creates massive instabilities when we use it normally. What would happen if we deliberately overloaded it? Maria's face went pale. In theory, it would create a cascade reaction that would propagate through subspace. The quantum disruption could affect Devourer systems across multiple star systems simultaneously. But Jake could hear the hesitation in her voice. But the ship would be completely destroyed in the process. The quantum cascade would tear us apart at the molecular level before it even began to spread. And there's no guarantee it would work. We'd be betting everything on an untested theory. Dr. Park pulled up her calculations on the conference room display. Actually, Maria's theory has merit. If we could position ourselves at the center of the largest Devourer concentration, a quantum cascade could potentially disable their entire fleet. The disruption would spread faster than light through their networked consciousness. Ryan studied the tactical data. The largest concentration of enemy ships is at their main processing facility in the New Geneva system. If we're going to do this, that's where we'd need to trigger the cascade. Jake looked around the table at his senior staff. These people had served with him for years through dangerous missions and impossible situations. Now he was asking them to consider a plan that would certainly result in their deaths. "I won't order anyone to go on a suicide mission," he said carefully. "This has to be a voluntary decision by everyone on the ship." Maria leaned forward. "Captain, with respect, this isn't just about us anymore. If the Devourers succeed, every human being in the galaxy will end up like those people we saw trapped in that processing facility. They'll be aware of their fate, but unable to fight back or die. That's worse than anything we could face." Dr. Park nodded in agreement. "The cascade reaction is our only chance to stop them. No conventional weapon has ever worked against the Devourers. But this quantum disruption attack has never been tried before. They won't be able to adapt to it in time." Ryan pulled up fleet deployment data. "Even if we warn Earth about what's coming, the human fleet doesn't stand a chance. The Devourers have already absorbed the technology and tactics of every coalition species. They know how to counter everything we might throw at them, except this." Jake made his decision. "I'm going to address the entire crew. Everyone on this ship deserves to know what we're facing and what our options are. Then we'll take a vote." An hour later, Jake stood in the ship's main cargo bay, looking out at the faces of his 180 crew members. He had served with most of these people for years. He knew their families, their dreams, their fears. Now, he had to ask them to give up everything for a plan that might not even work. "By now, you've all heard the reports about what happened to the Coalition core worlds," he began. "The Devourers have returned, and they're heading for Earth. Every ship that has tried to stop them has been destroyed or converted into part of their fleet." The cargo bay was completely silent. Jake could see the fear in their eyes, but also the determination that had made them volunteer for deep space exploration duty in the first place. "Our quantum drive technology appears to disrupt their adaptive systems in ways they can't counter. Chief Santos and Dr. Park believe we can use this to create a weapon that could stop the entire Devourer fleet. But using this weapon would require us to sacrifice our ship and our lives." A young ensign from the navigation department raised her hand. "Captain, what happens to Earth if we don't try this plan?" "Earth falls. Every human colony falls. Our entire species becomes part of their collective consciousness, trapped and aware, but unable to resist." An older petty officer from the engineering section spoke up. "Sir, what are the chances that this quantum cascade actually works?" Jake looked at Maria, who stepped forward. "Honestly, we don't know. We're working with incomplete data and untested theories, but the alternative is certain defeat." For several minutes, crew members asked questions and discussed the situation among themselves. Jake watched their faces, seeing the moment when each person came to terms with what they were being asked to do. Finally, Chief Petty Officer Williams, the senior enlisted member of the crew, stepped forward. "Captain, I've been in the service for 26 years. I've seen a lot of battles and a lot of good people die. But I've never seen anything like what those monsters did to the Coalition worlds. If there's a chance we can stop them from doing the same thing to our families, then we have to take it." The cargo bay erupted in agreement. One by one, crew members voiced their support for the mission. Jake felt pride and sorrow wash over him in equal measure. These people were willing to die to protect others they would never meet. When the formal vote was taken, the result was unanimous. The entire crew of the USS Defiant volunteered to turn their ship into a weapon that could save the galaxy. As they prepared to leave their hidden asteroid field and head back into Devourer space, Jake stood on the bridge watching his crew work. They moved with purpose and determination, modifying their ship for its final mission. In a few hours, they would begin the journey that would end with their deaths. But if their sacrifice worked, it would mean that children on Earth would grow. up free instead of trapped in nightmare. It would mean that humanity's stubborn refusal to accept elegant solutions might finally save them all. 50 years had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the edge of known space. The galaxy had learned to function without them, or at least that's what everyone tried to believe. Commander Nix 7 stood on the bridge of his Zephyrian warship, the Golden Talon. His silver feathers were dull with age now, and his once bright eyes had grown tired from decades of patrol duty. The sector he protected had once been under human control. Back then, it had been peaceful. "Sir, we have another border incident," reported his communications officer. "The Torvan ships are pushing into neutral space again." Nix 7 sighed deeply. The Torvan hegemony had been a minor threat when humans were around. Now they had grown, bold and aggressive. Without human diplomats to keep them in line, the Torvans had expanded their territory by force every few years. "How many ships?" Nix 7 asked. 12 heavy cruisers and 6 destroyers. They're demanding that the mining colonies surrender or be destroyed. In the old days, a single human ship would have shown up and talked both sides down from war. Human. Captains had a gift for finding solutions that made everyone happy enough to stop fighting. Now, stopping the Torvans required a full battle fleet and usually ended with hundreds dead on both sides. "Signal the fleet," Nix 7 ordered. "We go to war again, 3 systems away, on the industrial world of Kepler 438b, Factory Supervisor Goal 9. Walked through the massive production halls. The machinery was old and breaking down. Half the assembly lines had shut down permanently. When humans had run this world, production never stopped. They had built systems that could fix themselves and predict problems before they happened. The factories had run like clockwork, feeding raw materials to hundreds of other worlds. "Supervisor, the main fusion reactor is showing stress fractures," reported Engineer Cole 2. His blue skin was pale with worry. "If it fails, we lose power to the entire complex." Goal 9 examined the technical readouts. The reactor was human-built, like most of the important equipment on the planet. The aliens had tried to maintain it for 50 years, but they didn't understand how it really worked. Human engineering was different from everyone else's. It was simple on the surface, but incredibly complex underneath. "Can we fix it?" Goal 9 asked. "We can try," Cole 2 said. "But the repair manuals are all in human technical language. Even with translators, we don't understand half of what they mean." Production on Kepler 438b had dropped to 40% of human-era levels. The goods that other worlds depended on were becoming scarce and expensive. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries were breaking down. In the crystal archives on Nexus Prime, Dr. Veltan studied human research files with growing frustration. She was one of the galaxy's smartest scientists, but human science made little sense to her. Their methods seemed random and illogical, yet they had achieved things no other species could match. The file she was reading described human breakthroughs in faster-than-light communication. The quantum resonance techniques they had developed allowed instant communication across vast distances. Every major world in the galaxy still used human-built communication arrays. The problem was that the arrays were breaking down. Critical components were failing, and no one knew how to replace them. The humans had built the systems, but they had kept the most important technical details to themselves. Dr. Veltan called her research assistant, a young crystal named Zara 9. "I found something strange in the human diplomatic archives." Veltan looked up from her work. The crystal beings communicated through light patterns in their transparent bodies, making them look like living rainbows when they were excited. "What did you find?" Veltan asked. "Records of conflicts that never happened, wars that were prevented before they started. The humans called them near misses. There are thousands of them." Veltan accessed the files through her computer interface. Each record showed a potential conflict between galactic species. Border, disputes, trade wars, territorial claims. All of them had been quietly resolved by human diplomats before they could explode into actual fighting. These files show that humans prevented 3 major wars every year on average, Zara 9 explained. They did it so smoothly that most species never knew how close they came to disaster. Now those conflicts were happening. Without human mediators, old grudges were turning into new wars. The galaxy was becoming a more dangerous and unstable place with each passing year. On the Zephyrian homeworld, scholar Zex Prime spent his days in the Great Library, studying human history and culture. He was part of a new generation of aliens, who had never known a galaxy without human protection. To him, humans were almost mythical figures. The more he learned about them, the more impressed he became. Humans didn't just fight wars better than other species. They understood war differently. They could see patterns and possibilities that escaped everyone else. "Grandfather," Zex Prime said to the old scholar who taught him, "why did the Council never give humans equal voting rights?" Scholar Zex One's feathers rustled with discomfort. He had been part of the government that voted against human equality. "We were afraid they would take control of everything. They were so good at solving problems that we worried they would solve us too. But they never tried to conquer anyone," Zex Prime pointed out. "They only fought when others started wars." "Fear isn't always logical," his grandfather admitted. "We saw how powerful they were, and we chose to keep them as servants rather than accept them as equals. Now we see the cost of that choice." The cost was becoming clear across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had split into 3 competing groups, each claiming to represent the true government. Without human diplomats to hold things together, cooperation had collapsed into competition. Wars that had been unthinkable during the human era were now regular occurrences. The Aquatic Dominion was fighting the Torvan hegemony over water rights. The machine worlds had cut off trade with the Organic Alliance. Even peaceful species were building armies for the first time in centuries. Commander Nix 7 received a priority message as his fleet prepared for battle against the Torvans. It came from Admiral Kree 5 of the Aquatic Dominion. "Nix 7, we need your help. The Torvans are threatening to poison our water supplies if we don't surrender 3 systems to them. We have no choice but to fight, but we'll lose without support." Nix 7 stared at the message. His fleet was already committed to protecting the mining colonies. If he divided his forces, both missions might fail. If he ignored the Aquatic Dominion, millions of water breathers would die. In the human era, this problem would never have existed. Human peacekeepers would have prevented the crisis from developing. Human diplomats would have found a solution that saved everyone. Human military advisors would have shown other species how to defend themselves without starting bigger wars. "Sir?" his communications officer asked. "What are your orders?" Nix 7 closed his eyes and tried to think like a human commander. What would Captain Lisa Harper have done? What would Admiral Kevin Brooks have decided? But he couldn't think like them. No one could. That was why the galaxy was falling apart. "Split the fleet," he finally ordered. "Half goes to save the water worlds, half protects the miners. We'll do our best and hope it's enough." It wasn't enough. It was never enough anymore. Without humans, to show them how, the other species were learning that keeping peace was much harder than making war. The silence where human voices used to be was growing louder every day. The first warning came from Deep Space Station Echo 7 on the outer edge of the galaxy. Sensor Officer Tal 6 was monitoring the usual empty space when his instrument started screaming. "What in the void is that?" he whispered to himself. The readings made no sense. Energy signatures, unlike anything in the galactic databases, were moving toward them at impossible speeds. Tal 6 called his supervisor immediately. "Commander Jex Prime, you need to see this. Something big is coming from outside our galaxy." Commander Jex Prime rushed to the sensor station. His insect-like eyes widened as he saw the data flowing across the screens. Whatever was approaching was massive. Not just one ship, but thousands, maybe millions. "Send an immediate alert to fleet." "Command," Jex Prime ordered. "Priority Alpha. We have unknown contacts approaching from extragalactic space. Within hours, Every major world in the galaxy had received the warning. But the governments were too busy fighting each other to pay proper attention. The Zephyrian Empire was at war with the Torvan hegemony. The Crystal Collective was dealing with internal rebellions. The Aquatic Dominion had closed its borders to all outside contact. Admiral Nix 7, now promoted to Supreme Commander of what remained of the Galactic Defense Forces, studied the incoming threat data with growing dread. His military advisors stood around the holographic display table, all of them looking worried. "Analysis report?" Nix 7 demanded. Science Officer Cole 8 stepped forward. "The entities are definitely not from our galaxy. Their technology appears to be biological rather than mechanical. They're not using ships in any sense we understand. They appear to be ships." "How many?" Nix 7 asked. "Conservative estimate is 50 million individual units. They're moving in a coordinated swarm formation. Current speed suggests they'll reach our outer systems in 6 weeks. Nix 7 felt cold fear run through his body. 50 million enemies coming from unknown space, and the galaxy's defenses were scattered across 100 different conflicts. "What do we know about their capabilities?" he asked. "That's where it gets worse," Cole 8 replied. "They seem to consume everything in their path. The first Outer Rim station went dark 3 days ago. When our scout ships arrived, they found nothing. No debris, no energy signatures, no trace that anything had ever been there. 3 systems closer to the galactic center, Dr. Velton worked frantically in her laboratory. The Crystal Collective had given her unlimited resources to find a way to fight the approaching threat. She had been studying every scrap of human military data she could find. "Dr. Velton," her assistant Zara 9 called out, "I found something in the human archives, a theoretical paper about fighting hive mind entities." Velton accessed the file immediately. The research was written by Dr. Rachel Stone 20 years before the human departure. It described defensive strategies against collective consciousness attackers. "This is incredible," Velton said as she read. "Dr. Stone predicted something like this might happen. She called them void swarms and said they would consume galaxies if not stopped properly. The paper outlined a specific type of quantum disruption, field that could interfere with hive mind communication. But the technology required to generate such fields was beyond anything the current galaxy could build. "The equations are here," Velton told her assistant, "but they're based on human scientific methods. I can follow the logic, but I can't make the intuitive leaps that humans were famous for." On the industrial world of Kepler 438b, Engineer Prime, Cot 9 received emergency orders from the galactic government. All production was to be switched to military hardware immediately. The aging factories would have to produce weapons and ships to fight the coming invasion. "Sir, the human-built defense grid is still offline," reported his chief technician. "Without it, we can't protect the planet if the invaders get this far." Cot 9 stared at the massive computer core that controlled the planetary defenses. It had been built by human engineers decades ago. The system was designed to adapt automatically to new threats, learning and evolving its defensive patterns. "Have we made any progress restarting it?" he asked. "The basic systems come online, but the adaptive functions won't activate. The human code is too complex. It's like trying to think someone else's thoughts." The defense grid represented humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. It could analyze enemy tactics in real time and adjust countermeasures instantly. No other species had ever created anything like it. "Keep trying," Cot 9 ordered. "If those things reach us, that grid might be our only hope." Scholar Zex Prime worked through the night in the Great Library, searching human records for any information about extragalactic threats. His grandfather, Scholar Zex 1, helped him access the oldest files. "Here," Zex Prime said, pointing to a document dated 300 years ago. "This is from the early days of human membership in the Council. They warned about entities from dark space between galaxies." The file contained a speech by the first human ambassador to the galaxy. He had told the Council that Earth's scientists believed hostile forces existed in the empty space between galaxy clusters. He recommended building better long-range sensors and defensive systems. The Council ignored the warning, Zex 1 said, sadly. We thought the humans were being paranoid. They always seemed to worry about threats that didn't exist. Except the threats did exist, Zex Prime replied. The humans just saw them coming before anyone else. On the front lines, the first contact with the Void Swarm happened at the mining world of Delta 9. Captain Rex 4 commanded the local defense force, 12 outdated patrol ships against an enemy no one understood. Captain, they're not responding to any communication attempts, reported his communications officer. Whatever they are, they don't seem interested in talking. Through his ship's main viewer, Rex 4 watched the swarm approach. They looked like living shadows with glowing cores moving in perfect formation without any visible means of propulsion. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. All ships, open fire, Rex 4 ordered. The patrol fleet's weapons lit up space with energy beams and missile trails. For a moment, it looked like they were doing damage. Several swarm entities flickered and seemed to weaken. Then something impossible happened. The damaged entities absorbed energy from their neighbors and regenerated completely. Within minutes, they were as strong as before. Sir, our weapons aren't working, the tactical officer reported. They're adapting to everything we throw at them. Worse, the swarm was learning. Their next attack came in patterns that countered the patrol fleet's defensive formations. It was like fighting an enemy that could read minds and predict every move. One by one, Rex 4's ships were overwhelmed. The swarm didn't destroy them in the usual way. Instead, they seemed to dissolve the ships completely, absorbing the matter and energy into themselves. Rex 4's ship was the last to fall. As the swarm entities closed in around him, he sent a final message to the galaxy. This is Captain Rex 4 to all ships. The enemy adapts to conventional weapons. They learn from every attack. They can't be stopped by normal military tactics. We need the humans. Only they might know how to fight something like this. The message reached Admiral Nix 7 as he prepared the main defense fleet. Reading Rex 4's final words, he realized the terrible truth. The galaxy faced an enemy that could only be defeated by the one species they had driven away. General Tor Maximus of the Torvan hegemony arrived at the emergency council meeting with his usual arrogance intact, but even he looked shaken by the reports from the front lines. My warriors are the finest in the galaxy, he declared. We will crush these invaders like we have crushed all our enemies. 3 days later, the Torvan home fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single ship survived. The swarm had learned from every previous battle and adapted tactics specifically designed to counter Torvan fighting methods. As news of the defeat spread, panic gripped the galaxy. System after system fell to the advancing swarm. The entities seemed unstoppable, learning from each encounter and becoming stronger with every victory. In her laboratory, Dr. Velton made a discovery that filled her with both hope and despair. Hidden in Dr. Rachel Stone's research was a complete battle plan for fighting the Void Swarm. The humans had known this day would come and had prepared for it, but the plan required human ships, human tactics, and human commanders who could think, in ways no other species could match. It required the one thing the galaxy no longer had. We need them back, Velton said to her empty laboratory. We drove away our protectors, and now we're going to die for it. Half the galaxy was gone. The Void Swarm had consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space where billions had once lived. Admiral Nix 7 stood in the emergency council chambers, watching as the remaining government leaders argued about their next move. We need to evacuate the core worlds, insisted Ambassador Cree 5 of the Aquatic Dominion. His water-filled suit bubbled with agitation. The swarm will reach us in 2 weeks. Running won't save us, replied General Tor Maximus. The Torvan leader had lost his entire home fleet, but his pride remained intact. We need to fight. Fight with what? Dr. Velton interrupted. Her crystal body flickered with frustrated light. Patterns. Every weapon we've tried makes them stronger. Every tactic we use, they learn and counter within hours. Nix 7 listened to the arguments with growing despair. The galaxy's greatest minds were offering the same failed solutions over and over. They were thinking like the species they were, not like the species they needed. There is one option, Scholar Zex Prime said quietly from the back of the chamber. His young voice carried clearly in the sudden silence. We find the humans and ask them to come back. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates shouted, "At once! The humans abandoned us! They wouldn't help even if we found them! We don't even know where they went!" Nix 7 raised his wing for silence. Scholar Zex Prime, explain your proposal. The young Zephyrian stepped forward nervously. I've been studying human records for years. They didn't just leave randomly. They had a plan. I've found traces of their route in old sensor logs and navigation data. He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. A faint line of dots led from human space toward the galactic rim and beyond. They left breadcrumbs, Zex Prime continued. Quantum signatures from their ships, ion trail markers, even message buoys in deep space. They wanted someone to be able to follow them if necessary. Dr. Velton examined the data with her scientific instruments. This is real. The trail is faint, but it's there. They went beyond the galactic edge into dark space. Even if we find them, General Tor Maximus growled, why would they help us? We treated them as servants and drove them away. Because they're human, Zex Prime said, simply. I've read their history, their literature, their cultural records. They can't ignore suffering, even when the sufferers wronged them. It's who they are. Admiral Nix 7 made the decision that would determine the galaxy's fate. We're going to try. I'm authorizing a search mission beyond the galactic rim. We'll follow the human trail and see where it leads. Who will go? Asked Ambassador Cree 5. I will, volunteered Explorer Captain Zara Unit 1 of the Crystal Collective. She was known throughout the galaxy as the best long-range scout alive. My ship can travel farther and faster than any other vessel in the, fleet. The mission was prepared in desperate haste. Zara Unit 1's ship, the Seeker, was loaded with the galaxy's best diplomats, scientists, and linguists. They would carry messages from every major species, begging humanity to return. Dr. Velton insisted on joining the mission. I have Dr. Rachel Stone's research data. If anyone can convince them we understand our mistakes, it should be someone who knows their science. As the Seeker prepared to depart, Scholar Zex Prime delivered a data crystal containing everything he had learned about human culture and psychology. Tell them we remember, he said. Tell them we know what we lost. The journey into dark space took 3 months. Beyond the galactic rim, space was almost empty. Only a few wandering stars provided light in the vast emptiness. The Seeker followed the faint human trail deeper into the void. Captain, reported Navigation Officer Cell 9, I'm detecting artificial structures ahead. The quantum signatures match human technology, but they're far more advanced than anything they had when they left. Through the main viewer, the crew saw something incredible. A massive space station floated in the darkness, larger than anything ever built in their home galaxy. It was clearly human in design, but the technology was decades ahead of what humans had possessed during their exodus. We're being scanned, announced the communications officer. Multiple ships are approaching our position. The ships that surrounded the Seeker were sleek and powerful, clearly built for war, but somehow beautiful at the same time. They moved with precision that spoke of advanced artificial intelligence and human intuition working together. A transmission came through on standard, galactic frequencies. The voice was unmistakably human, speaking in the calm, confident tone that had once been heard throughout their galaxy. Unknown vessel, This is Captain Dan Rivers of the human defense ship Freedom's Edge. State your purpose in human protective. Space! Zara Unit 1 responded immediately. Captain Rivers, I am Explorer Captain Zara Unit 1 of the Galactic Council. We come seeking help for our galaxy. We need to speak with your leaders. There was a long pause before Dan Rivers replied. His voice carried sadness and weariness that spoke of years spent watching disasters he could have prevented. We know why you're here, Captain. We've been monitoring the situation in our former galaxy. The Void Swarm has consumed 40% of inhabited systems. Billions are dead. Then you know we need your help, Zara Unit 1 said desperately. Follow my ship to New Terra, Dan replied. Our leaders will decide if anything has changed enough to matter. The journey to the human capital took 2 days. Along the way, the Seeker passed wonders that boggled the alien minds aboard. Human, space stations that bent reality itself, ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, agricultural worlds where the very atoms had been reorganized to support impossible abundance. They didn't just survive out here, Dr. Velton whispered in amazement. They thrived. They became something greater than they were. New Terra was a planet that had been completely transformed by human engineering. Cities floated in the clouds while vast gardens covered the surface. The technology was so advanced it seemed like magic to the visiting aliens. President Alex Carter met the alien delegation in the Human Senate building. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and strong hands, the type of leader who inspired confidence just by being present. Welcome to New Terra, she said formally. I understand you represent what remains of the Galactic Council. Zara Unit 1 stepped forward with as much dignity as she could manage. President Carter, our galaxy is dying. The Void Swarm has destroyed half our worlds and continues to advance. Our weapons are useless against them. Our tactics fail because they learn from every encounter. We know, Alex replied. We've been watching your struggle. Our long-range sensors have tracked every battle, every defeat. Then you know we need your help, Dr. Velton said, stepping forward. I have Dr. Rachel Stone's research. She predicted this invasion and developed countermeasures. But we can't implement them without human knowledge and technology. Alex studied the data crystal that Velton offered. Dr. Stone was my predecessor's scientific advisor. She warned the Council about extragalactic threats decades before they materialized. As I recall, the Council dismissed her concerns as human. Paranoia. The words stung because they were true. Zara Unit 1 forced herself to continue. We were wrong. We were wrong about everything. We took your protection for granted. We treated your guidance as interference. We used your people as expendable soldiers while keeping you from having any real voice in government. And now you want us to come back and save you, Alex said quietly. Yes, Zara Unit 1 admitted. We're begging you to save us. Not because we deserve it, but because billions of innocent people will die if you don't. Alex Carter was silent for a long moment, studying the faces of the alien delegates who had traveled so far to ask for help from the people they had driven away. The Human Senate will debate your request, she finally said. We'll have an answer in 3 days. Those 3 days felt like years to the waiting aliens. In their home galaxy, the Void Swarm continued its advance, consuming more worlds every hour. Time was running out for everyone they had left behind. Finally, Alex Carter returned, with her answer and the fate of 2 galaxies hanging in the balance. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the wide windows of the UES Liberty's bridge, watching the last group of human transport ships disappear into the bright flash of hyperspace. Each ship carried families, workers, soldiers, and dreams that had once called this part of the galaxy home. Now they were all leaving, forced out by the very people they had protected for over 100 years. Sir, that's the final convoy, said Commander Lisa Brooks as she walked up beside him. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the sadness underneath. All human colonies in council space have been emptied. Every military base, every research station, every diplomatic office. We're done here. Jake nodded slowly. The evacuation had taken 3 months to complete. 3 months of packing up over a century of human presence in galactic civilization. 3 months of saying goodbye to alien friends who couldn't speak up for them. 3 months of watching the Galactic Council celebrate their victory over the aggressive humans. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humans were being kicked out for being too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous. Yet for the past 100 years, it was human peacekeepers who had stopped wars before they started. Human diplomats who found solutions when alien species couldn't agree. Human soldiers who protected trade routes and kept pirates away. Human doctors who rushed to help when disasters struck alien worlds. What about the defense platforms around Vega Prime? Jake asked. The massive orbital weapons had been built by humans to protect the Vegan homeworld from asteroid impacts and hostile forces. Admiral Hayes ordered them shut down and abandoned, Lisa replied. The Vegans can figure out how to run them themselves, or not. Admiral Kevin Hayes had been in charge of the entire human withdrawal. He had done something that surprised even Jake. He had made it completely peaceful. No angry speeches in the council chambers, no threats about what would happen without human protection, no demands for apologies or compensation for all the help humans had given over the years. Hayes had simply said, "We understand your decision," and began the largest military withdrawal in galactic history. The bridge communications officer, Lieutenant Ben Carter, looked up from his station. "Captain, we're getting a message from Council Central. It's from Ambassador Claxtor." Jake felt his jaw tighten. Claxtor was the Zephyrian who had led the campaign to remove humans from council space. He had spent 2 years giving speeches about how humans were too primitive, too emotional, too quick to fight, how they disrupted the natural order of galactic civilization with their strange ideas about equality and justice. "Put it through," Jake said. The main screen flickered, showing the tall, thin form of Ambassador Claxtor. His pale blue skin looked almost white under the council chamber lights, and his large black eyes held no warmth. "Captain Morrison, I trust your withdrawal is proceeding smoothly." "Yes, Ambassador. All human personnel and equipment are leaving council space as requested." "Good. I want to make sure there are no misunderstandings about this decision. The council has voted, and the matter is final. Humanity's time in civilized space is over." Jake kept his voice level. "We understand, Ambassador. We're leaving." "See that you do? And Captain?" Claxtor leaned forward slightly. "Don't think about coming back. The galaxy will be much better without your kind interfering in affairs that don't concern you." The transmission ended. Jake stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned away. Affairs that don't concern us, he thought. Like the trade war between the Altarians and Centaurians that human mediators had prevented from turning violent. Like the pirate raids in the Outer Rim that human patrols had stopped. Like the plague on Xerion that human medical teams had contained before it could spread to other worlds. "Sir?" Lisa was looking at him with concern. "I'm fine," Jake said. "Just thinking about all the good we've done here, all the lives we've saved, all the wars we've prevented." "And now they want us gone," said Lieutenant Carter bitterly. "After everything." "They'll learn," Jake said quietly. "They'll learn what it was like before we came, what it'll be like after we leave." The truth was that humans had arrived in this part of the galaxy at just the right time. The various alien species had been locked in endless cycles of war and revenge. The Drakmari fought the Altarians. The Altarians fought the Centaurians. The Centaurians fought the Vegans. Everyone fought the Zephyrians, and the Zephyrians considered themselves above everyone else. When humans had first made contact, they were seen as just another primitive species. But humans had something the others lacked. They could see past old grudges. They could find middle ground between enemies. They could make peace where others saw only war. It hadn't been easy. The first human ambassador, Robert King, had been killed by Drakmari extremists who didn't want peace with their enemies. But instead of seeking revenge, humans had sent another ambassador, and another, and another, each one working patiently, to build trust, to create understanding, to show that there was a better way. Slowly, it had worked. Trade agreements replaced raiding parties, joint research projects replaced territorial disputes, cultural exchanges replaced propaganda wars. The galaxy had entered its most peaceful period in recorded history, and now it was ending. "Captain," called Ensign Mary Lopez from the sensor station, "I'm picking up movement in the Kepler system. Looks like multiple ships, but they're not broadcasting identification codes." Jake frowned. The Kepler system contained a major trading station that served as a hub for commerce between several species. It had always been protected by human patrols. "How many ships?" "At least 20, sir. Mixed types. Some look Drakmari, some Centaurian. Couple of unknowns. They're converging on Kepler Station." "Pirates?" Lisa said grimly. "They know we're gone." Jake felt a cold knot in his stomach. It was starting already. The protection humans had provided was disappearing, and the predators were moving in to fill the void. "Sir, should we respond?" asked Lopez. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Kepler Station had maybe 50,000 people on it. Traders, workers, families. They were counting on the safety that human patrols had always provided. But humans weren't welcome in council space anymore. They had been ordered to leave and never come back. "No," Jake said finally. "It's not our responsibility anymore. The council made that clear." "But sir," Lopez started. "No," Jake repeated firmly. "We follow our orders. We leave council space, and we don't look back." He turned to the communications officer. "Send a message to Admiral Hayes. Tell him we're ready to depart for frontier space." "Yes, sir." As the UES Liberty turned away from council space and prepared for hyperspace, Jake took one last look at the stars that had been humanity's second home. Somewhere out there, people who had once called humans friends were about to learn what life was like without their protection. Somewhere out there, species that had kicked humans out were about to face the consequences of their decision. The hyperspace engines hummed to life, and Jake felt the familiar sensation of reality bending around them. In a flash of light, they were gone, leaving behind empty space where human ships had patrolled for generations. Behind them, the first distress signals from Kepler Station were already reaching council space. The pirates had arrived, and there were no human defenders to stop them. The galaxy was about to learn the true cost of its arrogance.